Jerry on the MGSN cast, ready to talk about products, ready to talk about AI, which is really, really starting to influence not, I mean, the entire world, but definitely what we're trying to do with Thinkland and what MGSN has been covering. But excited to talk about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it's well, hey, listen, we're anybody who's been following the great MGSN cast podcast, and you'll see in real time uh, what has happened right in your company,
Mm,
Thinklin. So it came out, gosh, it was right when Thinklin demo Euro 2024 was happening. AI was kind of like a
mm,
buzz in your ear, like a
mhm.
mosquito,
Yeah.
But when we did the podcast in Galway, you went to Pillow and Tea. They set up studios, beautiful studios in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, Galway, Ireland. And we conducted, as was promised to the MGSN followers, weekly a podcast, which encapsulated the work that was being done with respect to strategic networking. Very, very important
Mm,
when you have reached the stage where you now have a startup and your startup's been in the marketplace for about a year or two, and it looks like you're moving in the right direction. You want to build up strategic networks, because from that you can have either a strategic alliance with a distributor over in Europe,
mm,
or a partner over in Europe, and that would be a strategic partnership. And that was the theme there, and that was what we were talking about in Galway
yeah.
during those podcasts. And in the buzz of your ear, this was this AI. This was this AI. Um, when we got back to the States, I got a call from the development team that you guys
Mm,
have over there. And you sent me this product that you were working on, this AI podcast. And it was really embracing, because all our podcasts up to then have been studio. And look, I still believe in putting a few bucks down, coming here to the epicenter of a startup. In 1833, the Green Mountain Inn was started by some entrepreneurs because they knew that this town, because of where it was located, that this would be a resort town, especially in the winter time. The beauty of this place I think all seasons this is a resort town.
yeah. It's funny because when we're the very first podcast that we filmed here in Stowe, I remember, AI. We talked about a little, internally about how AI. I thought how disruptive it was. And it was kind of a joke back then. It was like, okay, how disruptive is it going to be? They always talk about this in Silicon Valley. This thing's going to be so disruptive. And now, my friend, it has been super disruptive. And I think I don't think people are prepared or aware as much as we've been talking about on MGSN how disruptive it's going to be not only for the tech, not only for the marketing and the digital space, but for every industry. And you're starting to see. It was just this week where people discovered there was this band on Spotify that had tens of thousands of daily listeners to it, and it started to get on playlists and popular charts and everything. And people were like, "What is this? What is this band? No one's ever heard of them, but they're so many daily users and all listeners and all these things." And if, we found out this week that it was completely AI. The band doesn't exist. They come in with a new album this week, I think. And you're seeing like even the creative spaces, which is very controversial, especially in the photography and I had music industry. But I think that's a great example of how disruptive this can be. And again, we're at the very early development stages of artificial intelligence and what it's doing. And again, I think people are glad that you're listening to this podcast because you have to stay ahead of it. And I think all the different tools that we're starting to develop within the Thinkland publishing house and in the Thinkland network, these are important things to stay on top of because if you're not, you're going to start to get pushed out, or you're going to start to, even if you don't want to, do everything you can. You're going to come across AI, and you're going to have to deal with it. And hopefully, you can do it intelligently because it's happening, it's here, and it's going to be the future of everything.
Well, you pointed out how do you get ahead of it? And
Mm,
one of the things that we have scheduled is another studio broadcast. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's in this beautiful setting that we're going to
yeah.
do, and it's going to be on on with the a product that I'm developing with Thinkland, Till Academy, and it's going to be how you who are currently coders or what have you, who are in a field where you're concerned about your future, how you can get ahead of AI. And you can learn from Mac's experience because we started we're working, I believe it was right before Portland's workshop, which was designed for the Asian trip. And AI dominated Thinkland Demo Asia
Mhm.
2025. The workshops in Portland that we did, again, it's an MO that I think and I thoroughly, if you're a SME and you want to get those creative juices flowing, you want to get that commitment from your workforce, invest in the workshops. If you don't know how to do them, reach out to this guy. He's going to show you how to do it. I believe through the magic of your global capability center, the contact information for Thinker will be here somewhere on the screen.
Yes, yes.
Reach out to him because it has when you think of the word corporate retreat, some people say, "Oh, that's so 1970s." But at the end of the day, it is real important to get that team building and also to get them
Mm.
out of the day in day out daily distractions. And it's worked wonders for us. And we did this in Portland, Maine. And I got to tell you something, folks. I never been to Portland, Maine before. One of the most nicest trips I ever had, and I worked day in and day out. So how's that possible? Well, I went to great restaurants. I had a nice session, a wellness session
Yeah.
that I never thought that I would ever have a chance to relax. It's on there. Put the phones away, put this away.
Right.
Pillow and Tea
Hello to you.
designed this. Well, actually, it was in collaboration with Madden Sante because it was a wellness. I stand corrected. They actually have a
That was the
strategic
wellness
alliance.
leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the wellness leg.
And
Yeah.
it really was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal workshop. That in that workshop, shortly thereafter, Matt came back with his product. He was on product council. He said, can you run this by me?" And we had, oh my gosh, so many sessions with our world famous global IP attorney, Pankaj
Oh,
Chain.
fantastic.
How do we? This is a great product, and we know that Max got a great content development team.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, look, is this how do we get through this LLM's terms of service, blah blah blah. Well, lo and behold, and actually, I believe on the MGSN Facebook page, there's actually an example of the AI podcast that was being developed in that very short period of time from Portland, which was in February 2025, this
Mhm.
year. Now, what happens, man, is his developers are smart. They know that this AI is changing rapidly,
It
like a
is.
snap of
It
the
is.
finger. And they started saying, "Look, we want to get a little bit more control over the models that are there because maybe they're there today, maybe they're not there tomorrow. We want to get into something a little bit more stable that's on there, and we want to incorporate that and build that into our studio." Now, you might recall when we were in Portland, we introduced some of you guys built out a studio over your campus
Mm.
there, and they said, "Well, we want to build this studio, but we want to make it a virtual studio because we want to be able to have collaborators from." Because they work a lot with engineers over in India, and so we want to work in Asia. We're building this whole nice platform up in, and we're working on this in Taipei. So how can we build this virtual studio? Well, they did that really good job. Looks nice on the screen. But more importantly, this week, I believe, well, not I believe, we just literally spent so much time up in Canada drilling down on this new product line that was on there. And the AI podcast that didn't exist when we were in Galway, which is like a year ago, which is so
Yeah. It's
remarkable,
critical.
is now gone from one level that passed all the product council's approval, put it out on the site, to now saying, well, we appreciate that, but we've now taken this AI to another level.
Yeah.
And this other level has now created, while this was, and I'll let Mac do the revelation. There is a brand new network out there, folks, and it's an AI network, and it's called
The Thinkland AI Network. And I just want to thank you again, Jerry, for bringing up Portland, Maine, because and for people that don't haven't been following us, they're just checking out this podcast. So we started for the first year, the full schedule of Demo25. It's actually 4 legs this year. We started in Portland, Maine. We did a leg in Portland, Maine. We did the second leg in Asia. Demo25 was incredible over there in Pune, India, and Taipei. Just incredible trip. the third leg we just finished up, wrapped up here in Canada. And then our fourth leg to wrap up the Demo 25 is going to be in Silicon Valley. And I just want to point out these four legs were so strategic to this AI development that we've been doing. It started, of course, in Portland, Maine, like you pointed out. But I think the real, send off party was when we were in Pune and, Pankaj Jain did his incredible demo, Thinkland demo presentation there, which again, you can find all this information on Thinkland.events and on Thinkland.com. Um, just really opened our eyes to he's an IP expert to what the impact of AI is in ownership and product, and especially product development. Bringing us all the way here to Canada, we're so happy to announce the Thinkland AI network because from these different events that we held throughout the year in Demo 25, we're now finally able to we're able to develop enough of our strategic network to now launch this Thinkland AI network where we're going to be hosting all these different products that we've been working hand in hand with all these different AI tools. And like you're saying, man, have they evolved. We have come from, very early stage AI products to now full blown platforms and networks that we're really ready to, start to bring to market for people to follow along. And it's just really exciting to see how heavily influenced these products have come from this incredible Demo 25 event. And to continue this, especially on this last leg going on to Silicon Valley, we're really, really excited to see where it goes.
Well, I'll tell you what's real impressive for us when we work, and we're working long hours up in Canada, in a nice resort. I mean, nice resort that helped. It helped take those breaks that Bill and T set up. But one of the things we found out is I witnessed Mac's team come to me, because obviously if you're a product manager and developer like Mac is, you got to get product counsel involved in this relatively soon. So I saw the alpha product of the
Mhm.
AI Network podcast. So the AI podcast, which was debuted, I guess it was about a month ago, in one format, which everybody's probably familiar with, was now a completely different format. And
Mhm.
more importantly, with the network, is that the diversification of the podcast that you can have on there. So now I reviewed before today's meeting uh, three uh, now they went from alpha. This just shows you how quick things go. They went through alpha, beta, and now they're in prototype. And the prototype we anticipate will be going to the market on this new network within a month. And I have there's three
So excited.
podcasts. So two podcasts was an ongoing great podcast for you people out there in MGS land who want to learn how to be an entrepreneur. You got to listen to the interview that Mac does with Gabby. Now, Gabby's a solo name. It's a solo name, as the podcast said, like the soccer stars and the glamour heads. It's a solo named Gabby, and she is a dynamic entrepreneur. And what I love about the podcast is they're going really slow, which you can do on the AI network. So they're quick 5 minute, 10 minute hits so that it comes in today's digestion, and then you can follow along the series. And it's a great series that Mac and Gabby develop on this, where they actually break down the process for you
Yeah.
guys out there of how do you get from business idea to having a startup. And that's a real wonderful component to it. This one other
Yeah.
point is Mac is, a lot of people don't know this, Mac is one of the leading entrepreneurs in the fan first media revolution that is revolutionizing sports media. Um, I heard they did it. I heard, and I hear rumors out there that there's going to be several sports related fan first medias that are going to get the same start that Mac got started when he was doing that media aspect. And then I also saw, by the way, for all you sponsors out there, if you want to get involved with the best, BCFF Football is now actually sponsoring podcasts that's out there. They're building their community even longer and bigger. And you better get on that sponsorship train now, or you're just going to be on the outside looking into the fan first media. And I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's going to be several other new sports media companies that are going to be coming on and doing fan first media, hockey, basketball, soccer. And here's the one I really love: Asian soccer. I'm a big big, gigantic fan of Asian soccer. I work in the South market. I love the CAF. The CAF is the Champions League in the African continent, and I love the AFL, which is the American or the Asian Football Conference (AFC). I'm sorry, conference, and that is their Champions League. And some of you are watching the Club World Championships, which are happening right now. It's just surprising how well some of the South American teams have done against European teams. Let's just say my Inter Miami didn't have a good day today against Paris Saint Germain. But what's good is that if you're living in the United States, you are a big soccer fan of these areas, you're not going to get that from corporate media.
No.
They'll give you a little bit of European on certain sides, but if you want to have a real dive, why did these European clubs not play as well as we thought they were going to play against South American clubs? Um, why the Palmeiras from the Brazilian league, and who are they? And that's what's going to be. That's great about your network, because if you are a fan of Brazilian football, if you are a fan of Korean football, which I am, I'm a massive fan of Incheon, which is they're in now. Unfortunately, they got relegated after last year into Division Two, but they're in first place in Division Two, and they're poised. If they get to November, they can maintain their position. Though they lost today, they can go up to Division One again. Now, if I spent a lot of time in the United States. Obviously, my office is in New York City, uh, but I have to really dig for these. But I won't have to do that now that this new network is on here, because they're going to be fan first sports medias that are going to have. I mean, and frankly, I hate to say this because it's such a cliche, but as far as your network is concerned, and those podcasts, those really nice digestible podcasts, they don't go on forever. They're not studio podcasts. They're AI podcasts that are driven by some of the best content developers who are so dedicated to the topic that they're doing, and they found a home on your network.
I think the best thing about fan-based media is that people there's niche categories within that, whether you're soccer fan, football fan, baseball fan, or whatever. But it gives the people what they want, right? You cut away the corporate media that wants to tell you this is what you need to pay attention to. At the end of the day, the fans run that. And I think it's a great perspective on what I think other industries need to do. Because, with prompting, with AI prompting, you're able to create a product, fine tune it to be exactly what your audience wants. So if you are in fan base, sports media, you're able to, really curate content that's specifically for your niche category, for your everyday sports fan. You give them that fan perspective, give them the opinion of the sports fan. You don't need to give them whatever the corporate or the team or the organization's perspective is. You can go directly to the fans. And I think for people's understanding with it for the AI, for Thinkland's AI network, is trying to create content and for all these niche categories that are specifically curated for them. And I think when we think about you know all these other categories, you have other examples of this where people are creating these AI avatars that pretend to be influencers, and like that example I said in the previous podcast about you know the Spotify and having the fake bands on there that are actually AI bands. So there's examples of this, but how do we take that concept and actually give people something really productive? So when we talk about having an AI podcast for entrepreneurs or digital developers, we can now really curate informative, productive content that's actually going to help out the everyday startup, everyday entrepreneur. So that's why we really wanted to start this AI, the Synclin AI network, because this is the business we're in. We want to help startups. We want to help, develop your digital products. And what it's a great medium right now. The medium of the day and the future medium of everything is going to be AI products and uh, podcasts. I think you can tell podcasts have taken over because I think it's an incredible way for people to digest information. You have just like this. I can ask a question, you can respond, and then we can kind of get in whether it's debate or really talking about any topics of the day. And I think, the nice thing about AI podcasts is that we can curate that information, really make it simple, easy to digest information. and especially if you're talking about AI or IP or data or very, very, sensitive topics, formatting it and curating it in a way where it's very digestible in a podcast form is what is a massive value, and it's the tools of today that are going to make that more possible. So, very exciting news, very exciting development to announce this network because I think for everyone following, whether it's MGSN or Thinklin, we're going to be able to put out content on a regular basis, and it's going to be easy for you to digest and again learn about AI, learn about digital development, learn how to structure your startup, learn how to go to market and work with product development or product counsel and all these different things that are very very difficult. People nowadays don't want to read a book. They don't want to have to do all these things. What they can do is on their car ride when they're trying to become an entrepreneur or start their own side hustle, they can listen to it in the car and learn how. Hey, how did Mac start his startup? How did Mac learn how to structure his startup? How did he work with a strategic partner or product counsel to develop his product? So that's what we're about to get into. Super excited about this, and I think that's where the value is, and we're really excited to venture into this.
I just first of all, congratulations on the launching of that network. I obviously as product counsel, I went through three podcasts today, and we're gonna get when
Mhm.
we talk about another podcast, which will be featuring here in this beautiful setting here in Stowe, Vermont, and so relaxing um, to be here and talk about things that are our passion. We're our
Mm.
passion, but we're also pragmatic. As we had a shift in midstream after putting a product on the marketplace and changed the format because AI is changing that quick. And the reason we did that is because we stayed ahead of it. And the reason we stayed ahead of it is because we knew we had the creative human control. That's going to be the legal guidelines. This
Mm.
ban that Mac talked about, well, they weren't transparent about who they were. What Mac is telling you is as transparent as the day is long in the summertime. He's telling you this is going to be AI. But that content, that's not being generated by putting something into AI and spit out. That's being generated by human beings who are experts in the field, who have that creative writing skill that can take that AI and make it so unique. You're not going to find that anywhere else.
Mhm.
That's in there. And you're going to get some very important lessons from people who aren't just uh 40 plus lawyers. They're going to be people who actually have gone through the process of starting their own business, who went in the merry-go-round. I love that line that I heard this morning from that young entrepreneur Gabby, who said, Mac, I remember when you talked about when you got to New York City, and I'm giving something away here, folks, free of charge. You got a little tired of here was a guy who studied like a dog in Washington, D.C., lived in D.C. to become an architect, and he got a little tired of, hey, I'm going to go from bounce to bounce, job to job, as most of them, a lot of the millennials are going through, a lot, and saying, look, I'm sick and tired of corporate profits rising and salaries depressing
Mhm.
and rents skyrocketing. So I'm going to say that for that podcast on his network, but it's a wonderful thing, and it's really done nicely. Because Mac and Gabby in the AI format are breaking down their own frustrations of living in a university, a town, and going to the university and looking for the same thing that their parents got and giving up a lot to study hard, only to find out that, well, market conditions change. And right now, and especially in the United States, it's really rising up to maximize profits. And the way you maximize profits is you lower your capital expenses. And the way you lower your capital expenses is you phase out the employees. But you know what? Sometimes those employees get their own business going and they start becoming competitors to you, and they have this cost-effective means of resolving. If you look in the business that I'm in, law business, the big law firms where their profit margins are going through the roof. Well, guess who had the biggest growth? It was the SME lawyers. Probably a lot of those lawyers got laid off in those big firms, started their own firms, but built these SME law firms. I was the fastest
Mm.
growing sector because they give cost effective means to the people who are consumers of legal work. And it's not just that upper crust that is being served. So, one of the things that I think is going to be really clear about this network is Max doing the right thing. He's coming to product counsel. We're telling him, hey, this is as long as you're transparent and you're putting out that content and that's fresh content. And if it is from somebody else because you guys see a good idea and you want to write on it, you're giving this was inspired by this article.
Well,
This was inspired by these fact
and
patterns.
Jerry's making a great point. I think this prototype that we're talking about, and I listened to it this morning. Man, is incredible. We just got it back from product council this morning, and I think the things that we talked about, this is happening real time right now with these product developments we're doing. We had the beta, we had the alpha product of this AI podcast, and not only did the market tell us it's not good enough, product council said, hey, you know what? There's not enough human control here. The IP experts also came in and said, you know what? This isn't a good enough tool. And again, with AI tools and AI development, these things can change quick. But another tool popped up, and we're able to develop the product more, curate it more, give more control to it, to where it's now a product that's completely curated and produced by Thinkland. And I think that's what's exciting. You get to see in real time how we went in this product development just for the single product, this AI podcast. How you got to be flexible, like I talked about before. You got to not be closed minded. You got to be open. Instead of being like, this is what we're the format we're sticking with. We adjust, whether that's the market telling us to adjust, whether that's our product council telling us to adjust, or whether that's even just the new tools popping up and not ignoring it just because you're too set in your ways. No, if something's better, pivot, move into it. And I think that is the key to AI development specifically, is that every, not just month, sometimes every week, there's going to be evolutions, product and digital product updates that you got to stay in tune with, which is why you really got to follow and keep following MGSN and Thinkland, because we're trying to stay on, we have a whole team dedicated to staying on top of all these different tools, and all their developments as well. Because again, everything can flip on its head. If tomorrow, with this incredible prototype that we really love today, if tomorrow another thing comes up, pops up better, our team's moving there. And I think that's the key. And I think that's what's exciting about this AI digital network, is that the products themselves are lenses into what you can be doing for your own startup.
And one of the things that we're going to talk about, Mac, is if you're dealing with coders, you're dealing with there's a real palpable fear that AI is going to push these guys aside.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Now, and there are other people in other different positions that are saying, hey, I'm going to push you aside. Now, I'll give you a prime example. When I was a young lawyer, you would go to a meeting and your skill set was whether you could get everything that was being discussed, rapid fire, and Mac has sat through meetings with lawyers, and that everybody seems to have an opinion, and then everybody seems to want to be spending about an hour with each syllable in that opinion. But what you do have is in those meetings, you get to discern that if you're a young starting lawyer, that you would take these minute meetings and you would record them, and you would have time pressure. We want these out by 5 o'clock tonight. Meeting went from 9 to 12.
Mm.
We want these out by 5 o'clock tonight. And your skill set was, could you write and analyze within a time frame? Well, guess what? Right now, frankly, you don't need that, because when you have the meetings and
Yeah.
you're on any sort of platform, you're going to get pretty good minute meetings. And that
Yeah.
means that lawyer, if that's what their skill set was, well, they're in trouble. I'll give you another prime example, again, in the legal profession, because that tends to be a little bit slow in moving with changes in the marketplace. When I went to law school, there was no Lexis or Westlaw or anything like that. You did what's called the descriptive word index. And that was a book and a library. The libraries were massive at the time. And you would have to go through these descriptive word digesters to get to the cases that maybe not will meet the legal issues that you had to resolve. And there were some lawyers who were so fantastic at descriptive word index. That's how they made their living. They made their living because you would hire these guys out because you really were on the time frame, and you'd say, hey, well, can you give me a couple of good descriptive word index? Sure, it's going to cost you 2,000, 3,000, whatever. And they just literally sat there and churned out, and they were like a bank. They were a bank.
Mm.
Problem was, then came tech. and you had Lex Law and Westlaw. And now, when that came in, at first it didn't take because lawyers said, "Scott, please, this is not going to happen in our profession. It's a state profession, goes back 4,000 years." Well, it did take off. And if you use the word, if I tell most young lawyers, I'm right now in the midst of teaching a young lawyer in an internship. If I use the word descriptive word index, they have no clue what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And a guy who just sat there and embraced that's just what we're going to do no matter what, because we're so good at it, we make so much money on it, and the market changed right under their nose with tech. Now, had he stayed ahead of it, had he stayed ahead of it and really embraced that technology, then they still would have had business. Now, for the coders out there, there's going to be the legal standard is going to be human control. We mentioned this in our last podcast, because nobody, no society can tolerate. Hey, this is fake. This is this. And if you look at a lot of stuff that people post on their websites and social media, you can tell it's you can tell it's AI
Yeah.
because they're doing the most simple prompts. Hey, get me a guy climbing up a tree with a birthday cake in his hand and a Santa Claus hat on one side and a Bugs Bunny ears on the other. Well, I mean, it's really not a lot there. Or get me a picture of three young kids coming out of school with a uniform with my name on it. That's a big deal. What you really need is creative writing, and that's we're going to talk about this in the next class because one of the products that we've been working on, working with Think on this, is the Till Academy, and this is an academy of global entrepreneurs and lawyers and people who are experts in their field who are going to be providing all sorts of educational material that's on there. Unlike MGSN, which is offering it for free, we're going to be charging for it. But at the end of the day, I want to talk to you about creative writing classes because one of the books that I'll be writing. It's going to be one of the classes that I'm going to be providing, and it's going to be probably I'm going to debut it in Asia. That's where I'm in that market place, but it's going to thanks to the team of
Mm.
Finklin, it's going to be on global availability, and we're going to talk about Till Academy, and I think is that's the next podcast that we're
Yeah,
scheduled for.
we're going to talk about that in our next podcast, and I think this is a good place though to where you just said to wrap this AI discussion up, Jerry, is that yeah, artificial intelligence. I think for the everyday person, that's a kind of a scary word. I
Yeah.
don't think most people understand when you say, "Hey, intelligence is going to take over." I think for most people, that what does that mean? I'm scared. Right? Is it going to take over? I think it's we might need a rebrand, or at least a rebrand to better understand what it means. I think people need to understand AI as of right now is outsourcing. You got to think of it more as you have a PhD assistant, level assistant in your pocket at all times. You have someone to assist you, right? When you outsource something, though, it's not to replace. You still need you. The business and the corporations and startups, they still need you. You're outsourcing the work, but you shouldn't be replacing your own work. And I think that's what you mentioned before is where people get in a little tricky areas when they go and they outsource it and they send it back to their clients and say this is my work. Well, that's not what you're supposed to do in the real world. When you outsource to something, they help you do it, but then you've got to go over it with a fine-tooth comb and go through all the things and make sure they did it right and format it the right way, make sure that it's correct, because again, AI hallucinates and we've started to see those numbers rise. You really need to go through it and understand it, but I think people think of it too much as something that's going to replace them. You got to think of more as this. It's a way to outsource some work and to help you assist you in getting that work done. And that's how I think people need to understand it better. Because when we talk about all these different things, whether it's the AI products that we're developing, the AI podcasts, we are outsourcing this, but we're going through the way you again the way you prompt engineer everything. This is all you, and at the end of the day, is you have to have an expert to be able to prompt and to outsource these things. For coders that, and I understand coders are really scared right now that they're going to be replaced. At the end of the day, who's going to be prompting that code? At the end of the day, who's going to be outsourcing those movements that they need and that intelligence to these AI tools? You still need someone in charge of it all. And I think if if you're really smart right now, knowing that that is the future, get in front of it, learn how to prompt, learn how to be the person that knows how to outsource work correctly and go through that and prompt and engineer all those different things. That is where the value is today. And if you're on top of that, you're going to be, you're on top of everything going forward.
No doubt about it. First off, we started well for him when the studio was being set up. Pill and Tea had this great Green Mountain
Oh
coffee,
man, I already finished.
and I did too. So thank God when we're because we both animated, come from the East Coast. That's the nature of the beast. So thank God because I finished my coffee too. By the way, is there any chance before our next meeting, we're doing recaps here of the great workshops that Thinkland hosted up in Canada, or excuse me, produced up in Canada, hosted by Matt Dusante, a great wellness
Oh,
company
great.
up in Canada. And what a beautiful office they had
Yeah.
in Saint Foy, which is a beautiful town. And my God, I am still thinking back of that magnificent little French cafe they got us with. We had the nice fresh baguettes, and the coffee was out of this world. So we're going to head back to a meeting, and then we're going to have another scheduled podcast. Hopefully, we'll get some more coffee here. We'll drink it before we can knock it down on the ground. And I just want to say one thing before we go, because you're clearly an inspiration for young people out there who've been through the merry-go-round, which is quoted in this very nicely done in this podcast, which I can't wait for that to be up and running because this network is being developed very quickly and
Yes.
very studiously and cautiously. That's on there. But when it's up, because of the speed of AI and because of the human control, I mean, there are lawyers watching over this, there are developers watching over this, and that we're in constant contact with a product manager like Mac, who is driving his innovation and his team. And we'll talk about at this next session how you can get ahead of this, how you can own the AI, and how it's not going to be easy. You got to do some work, but you always got to do some work when you're adjusting, and you always got to be resilient. You got to be resilient. And don't tell me that's not me. It's not in my DNA. It is. We're going to teach you how to do this because that's what we do. We've been through hell and back in 40 years practicing law. I'm a small law firm and a very big, the epicenter of big law firms that's on there. And so, how do you survive in those environments? It's resilience. Wasn't born with it. I learned it from guys who were through tough times before me, who were my mentors. So, I guess on that happy note, I'm gonna hopefully if Gabby can get us some coffee here, but and the pillow with Gabby's staff, I guess it's doing it. It was doing the coffee. Oh, I see the machines over there. We can help ourselves. All right, Mac, is there anything you want to say? What friends you out there?
No, I think the only thing to say to our lovely followers is go start your startup.